Wednesday, I guess.
Yeah, yep. The day after the elections, we won't talk too much about politics, but
We won't talk too much, or we gonna talk about
I
at
guess
all?
I don't know. It's up to you. We don't want to be diplomatic. We'll see. We'll see how things go forward, and hopefully, America is great again.
You said that you said everything. I'll leave it there. Yeah, I leave it there.
So
Um,
how's it going? How you doing?
um, for I'm doing great actually. For every single group and pack-oriented animal, like humans are, the leader is of very much importance, and the way how the group sets itself up for success or failure gonna depend a lot about the leader. And usually what
I see like an echo or a double,
echoing, yeah, but can you do something with that echoing, please?
yeah, with a delay as well. So
Okay, so yeah, do you want to, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I don't hear the echo either.
Okay, we don't hear echo. Thank you, Vedran, so much. Yeah. So it's kind of like we always think that whatever we choose or whatever majority choose, kind of like a democracy is a very interesting way in which like 51% rules over the other half of the of the community. It's kind of like doesn't seem like fair from one end because it's a half a majority, however majority means, but it's also a reflection of the collective consciousness. And I think like that's what every single group uh, like a pack of wolves or pack of dogs or pack of humans on the other sense, no matter of which level, we always tend to look for the leader. And that is the leader, the way of the leader leads will give a sense of belonging to the entire community,
Yeah.
the entire group. And that's how important the strength of the leader is. That's actually non-biased. That's very important, I guess. That's the very important part of the leader. And every wolf pack would love their own puppies, no matter how the puppies are and what the puppies love. But they would try to put them in order, because the very important structure of the pack and structure of any group depends on which roles members of the group take on. And that how the strong the group is, the stronger the group is, the better is actually, and more how can I say, uh, every single member of the group understands their role. And
Right.
when it comes to the human dog interaction and relationship, understanding the role of the dog and communicating the role of the leader is of very much importance. And I guess like we all agree in that if the family that has a dog doesn't have a structure, the dogs usually tend to take over, and then you don't know how that's gonna end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Or it's also
consequences
too,
of that.
Stephen, uh, or it's just confusing for the dog because they can't even, yeah, they don't even notice the structure or they don't even recognize there is a structure. Then it's confusing for them as to what's allowed and what's not allowed, especially when the leader's inconsistent, you know,
Yeah,
also.
but consequence of that confusion
Mhm.
would be the dog stepping in a role of the leader, and
Yeah.
then they kind of rule over the house and rule over the people, and then they express that behavior through the different undesirable and unacceptable ways that we
Mhm.
tend to later compress or try to work around or try to fix, wherever it's nothing wrong with the dog. Is actually everything that's wrong is with the humans.
Mhm.
So last time you was talking about what you do in the first week, and then maybe I'll share my first 72 hours that I kind of like um, work around. What do you think about that? Would that be
Yeah, no,
interesting for
this is
you?
exciting. Yeah, absolutely. Share it with me.
Okay, so everything I do, everything we believe in sets a foundation for what we do.
Mhm.
And in that sense, I really did a deep understanding and study of the wolf pack,
Mhm.
understanding the wolf, and trying to understand the evolution of the dog, because that etiology of the dog will give us pretty much a sense of understanding what the dog without influence of the humans are. you know, because oftentimes when we discuss a dogs, we discuss my dog or your dog or someone else's dog, and
Mm-hmm.
then how those particular dogs reacts under certain environment. But trying to observe the dog without a human influence, beyond the human influence, can give us a very significant understanding of the dog's original needs, like what the dog's needs what the dog needs are, transcending the human influence.
Right.
And from that perspective, learning about the dogs, we have pretty much very limited amount of the studies, and scientists are not even interested in studying the dog, right? Because on one end, zoologists would be not interesting in the dog because it's too much domesticated, it's too much under human influence, and because of that, it's not part of the natural environment, and as such is not evaluated and not interesting for
And
anyone that
if
studies.
they do a
Sorry?
study on dogs, they're not doing a study on dogs as they're coexisting in the natural, like not like stray dogs. I don't like to say stray dogs because those are pets, but like dogs that actually have built that structure and they're independent living amongst humans but are owned by somebody,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Because
some of the street dogs in Mexico, they're feral dogs. They're meant to be out. Those dogs should be studied,
yeah, yeah.
not necessarily as they're already with the people.
Yes, yes, and that was where I find, trying to find someone that did those studies. I came across a scientist and biologist called Ray Compinger. I don't know, were you familiar with his job, but he
Mm-hmm.
was doing a lot about trying to understand the dog beyond the human influence, understanding how the dog become a dog, and then he has very interesting evolutionary sense in which actually the dogs that we know today, like even the stray dogs, as you said, or the pets that ended up on a street, but actually everything that we have today in our homes, starting from the poodle, ended up with any mixed breed or whatever we call, dogs,
Mm-hmm.
actually originated from the feral dogs, the dogs that were approaching the cities in sense to find the food, because the once the humans stopped moving around, right, we were like very nomadic in a sense of our lifestyle, and then at once the humans stopped moving, with that starting to form cities or villages, or let's say villages, and later on cities and things like that. Kind of lifestyle provided a lot of extra food that the
Mm-hmm.
dog, actually the wolves now didn't need to fight for, and they don't need to hunt. But then the interesting thing is that usually the wolves would be pretty much scared to approach us humans so close, in order to be able to eat of those scavenge on those leftovers. And
Yeah.
then we're actually, and usually you're familiar with the silver fox experiment of Belyaev.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in which he said that if we kind of like take a dog, take a foxes, and later on it was applied to a dogs as well, to a canines as well. They said, like, if you breed foxes only on the temperament, like tameness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, in a couple of generations, you're gonna be able to get completely tame the like a foxes that will start slowly to change their appearance. So silver fox is silver probably because of there is a name silver because of the color, I guess.
Right.
But
Right.
then later on, as we breed them for tameness, the color will start changing as well, getting them more white and with the patches, with the spots and things like that. And very interesting thing, what he find out in a conclusion, said that the less adrenaline is released in the body because of that flight distance and flight mode of the dogs, or the actually wolves, or in this case foxes, being scared of humans, and they are not able to approach. Then he actually concluded that what happened in the wolf transition into a dogs was actually which wolves of the pack which wolves in the pack, what do you think actually release the most adrenaline? inside their body and have the most smallest flight distance.
Which dogs had a
No, which
stronger
wolf? In the
or which were
structure
more confident?
in a structure of the wolf pack,
Mhm.
which wolves in a structure would have the less adrenaline released in their body?
I would assume the breeding pair, because they're the ones that are more leading the group, and they're the ones that um
And it's quite the opposite, because they have a lot of adrenaline, because they are really on a flight and fight mode, because
mhm,
they need to provide, and they need to react, and they need to try to find a way to preserve environment and existence of the pack. But
mhm,
every single as we go deeper in the structure, less and less capacity, hormonal capacity for leadership exists. So then when we come to the omega wolves, those wolves completely depend on the alphas, because
mhm,
they don't have a leadership skills. And the deeper we go into the pack, uh, less like a smaller flight distance is, because those wolves would be able to think twice and say, if I follow alpha in hunt, I might be, hungry, because every 10th out of nine, every 10th trial of the hunt actually is productive. So animals in the nature, the wolves would be much often, more often the wolves are hungrier than they're full. And
yeah.
here you have a creature that just releases food just like that. So
Mhm,
now omega wolves are the ones that are able to approach, because
mhm,
they have a shorter flight distance. They might be able not to get scared of the humans. And when they start breeding among themselves, the puppies would get closer and closer and closer to humans, changing their appearance based on Belyaev experiment, and
mhm,
finally get closer to humans, which actually gives the dog always this, how can I say, evolutionary advantage, that if
mhm.
we are not really careful about how do we interact with our dogs by default are always two step ahead of us, by knowing which direction we're going to move, what we're going to do, because they depend on predicting the human action and reaction of the humans reaction to their environment, so they can blend in it. And later, so
Is that
the
is Ray still around? He's alive still, right?
no,
Right?
no,
The
he
person.
died, I think, 2017. He's not around anymore. we
Bummer.
we had a very close relationship with our school, and kind of like we use some of his books and lectures to lay this foundation for our students. And that's very crucial to understand, actually, that the wolves are actually domesticated themselves to a
Mhm.
human environment of
I think
lifestyle.
it'd be awesome to, because I was going to say it'd be cool to have him on a podcast show where we could talk about stuff, right?
Well,
But I'm wondering if there's somebody that, and maybe one of the listeners who's ever listening, or somebody who's tuning in knows somebody that's very that's somebody that either has a degree in a geneticist, especially a geneticist that knows a lot about animals. That would be somebody super cool to invite on the show in the future, to talk to a geneticist where we could talk about the fox experiment a little bit more in detail.
he was very interesting in talking how actually genetics influence the dog's shape, because we all agree in that actually genes are and then shape allows dog to perform certain tasks better than the others. But
Right,
for
right.
example, he said, if you have husky and you let them sled the those races and everything in a winter, because of their body and the composition of the body, they will be able to do much faster and much longer distances than let's say uh, how group of the dogs that are, let's say, pointer or setters, right?
Yeah,
But
or
that
short leg
wasn't
dog.
but he said in his lecture, in one of the lectures, he was showing entire like a eight pair, like a four pair, eight dogs, eight German short hair pointers, pulling the sled, like pulling the sled and competing in the environment. They did came last, but they still did the entire race.
Yeah,
So
of course.
and why did they, why, and then he said like there was a very big glitch in we, how did he explain this environmental impact on the genes? Because the every single possibilities that we have in our body, in our body, carrying that possibilities through the genes, are actually something that remains, and it will be a possibility. And he also talks, and that is where this perception of mine comes. It's not because I said that the environment is shaping dogs' behavior, but because
Mhm.
they said so, that every single thing, and then how the genes are actually functioning. So the genes actually carry information, but on their
Mhm.
own they do nothing. But based
Right.
on those informations, amino acid combine themselves together in the protein. And the protein, and in his lecture you can talk it, and maybe I can send you some of theirs. He said, by unknown rules of nature, and he calls them miracle, the shape
Mhm.
appears. No one knows how the protein shape themselves into what we call nose or arm or leg. So
Mhm.
if we would be able to take a protein or cell, or let's say muscle cell, from the nose or from the arm or from the leg, not necessarily we would be able to determine which part of the body that cell was taken. And that because the size of the cell might be the same. The structure
Mhm.
of the cell is the same, because muscle cell here and muscle cells there would be of the same structure. What
Mhm.
is the miracle that makes nose look like a nose and limbs like limbs and legs like legs? It's something that the genes are actually pretty much responsible for. And then there is
And
Rupert
that would be, and
Sheldrake.
that would be cool to bring a geneticist on, because then we kind of go into, because you're right about the cells, right? But have you ever heard, you've heard where in studies they've not cloned, I guess it could be considered cloning, but they actually grew a human ear on the back of a rat.
Oh my God, that sounds ugly.
They could
Like
duplicate parts. They could duplicate the part. They could duplicate your arm. I mean, cloning is available. You know, they could clone you a new arm that actually is genetically your arm, but they're cloning it separately.
Hmm.
And like, how do they know which cells to put together so they know that's going to be the arm and not accidentally the foot, right?
But there is another like very controversial scientist of our new age called Rupert Sheldrake, that
Mm-hmm.
says that there is the genes are actually not storing the memory, and the memory or the consciousness or the mind is something that's actually fluctuates outside the body, and the mind is not within the body, within the brain, but somewhere outside, and connects and penetrates, because us talking on a Zoom is just using a technology,
So
but we
that's
are
where spirituality comes in, because that means that we're being controlled by Wi-Fi, probably by ourselves in a different plane.
Yeah, because that's what we are. We are in a different time zone, and we are
Yeah.
at the different places of the planet at the moment. But yet, by using this technology, actually, we are able to connect at the same place at the same time, penetrating time and space and joining together by using a technology that was actually made by understanding how the mind, telepathy, and all other ways of so-called pseudo-scientific relationship in between humans operate. And just
Yeah.
because now we are able to talk through the Zoom and have a picture in real time and talking maybe with a delay of a couple of seconds,
Uh-huh.
proves that if it's possible with technology, it's possible without it as well. Just we are
Yeah.
not capable of understanding how all of this actually works, how the camera transfers the picture, and then all of this goes through some ether, through some cloud, through some
I still don't
space.
understand how this works. Somebody, and this was always available to us, right? So just so you know, Wi-Fi, airwaves, the signal, you and me talking on completely different sides of the United States on Zoom, that was always available to us until someone discovered or mistakenly figured out, oh wow, this happens and we can do this, right?
Oh, you mean
So
Tesla? Tesla was just actually dreaming about, and he said like, yeah, we're gonna be connected with this phone that wouldn't be plugged into a cable, and we're gonna be able to use ether to communicate. And then and how this actually works, I don't think so. There is like too much logical explanation for someone of average understanding of the mind, space, and time.
You know what's
And
interesting? Have you ever? I'm sure maybe kind of because of your background and how and spirituality, and I've seen this before too. You ever see this old toy? I think it's kind of like an energy stick. It doesn't have any batteries. It has wires in it. There's metal on each point of it. There's no way this thing can turn on. But when you touch one end and touch the other end with your other hand, it lights up. So your energy is actually controlling it. Wouldn't that? Have you seen a stick like that before? Called the energy stick. Little kids
oh
play
yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah. I did. Yes, 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 yes,
So
yes. I
wouldn't
did.
that be awesome if Tesla created a phone that when you touch it, your energy actually energizes that? You don't need the battery. You are the battery.
Yeah, because that's what he said. The reason why he was, why he lost the J.P. Morgan support was because he was offering Ether as a transmission of the energy. He said we don't need the cables, and we don't need the wires in order to transfer the power from one point to the other. And then J.P. Morgan said like, and then who we gonna sell our wires to? And thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Tesla, for your invention, but we are no longer interested in that.
Yeah,
And
I
then
know I'm
what
bouncing, I know I'm bouncing around a lot, but I always one of the cool things about, well, too bad Ray's not alive anymore, but if he was, or if we could bring on a geneticist here, is regarding
Yeah.
that silver fox experiment. So just kind of bringing it back to what you were talking to me about.
Yeah,
We're
and then why to understand all of this is a crucial for us to understand how do we. I'm sorry, what you said?
Yeah, we're experiencing coyotes that do that. Coyote, especially in Texas, because you're in Texas, right?
Mhm.
You guys got a lot of coyotes.
I guess
And
not that I'm aware of yet.
they're scavengers, right? So they're doing really quite similarly to what Ray would have been explaining. And they have to be kind of also breeding amongst each other. And I'm wondering why we're not seeing physical changes from the coyotes from kind of doing their own controlled breeding, like the silver fox experiment. Unless I'm wrong, and a geneticist says no, coyotes are changing.
Maybe, but maybe it would happen the same what happened to the wolves. They would not change entirely, but the ones that are starting to adapt to a human environment occasionally gonna just end up becoming a feral dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe, and then the wild coyotes or alpha pair or the part of the pack gonna remain hunting and doing their things, and the ones that are getting closer and closer and closer to the humans, they might just end up because of canine and the possibilities of genetic
Oh, no,
coherence and similarity
really,
is very high.
where the dingo came from? Because on Australia they had the dingo, which now they're saying the dingo is actually a dog, but actually I think they're considered a different species now. So, but
I don't know.
anyway,
So it's kind of
yeah.
very. So why I open this floodgates and the rabbit hole is to see how a lot of things are to be answered before we can say, oh yes, I know about the dogs, and this is what the dogs are, and this is what the needs of the dogs are, and this is how we as a humans gonna meet their needs, so we actually know what we are dealing with. And that's why there is so many ways of what you do to the dog and how you bathe them and how you breed them and how do you feed them and how is that a carnivore diet or what is a species appropriate diet?
Mhm.
It's is it a carbohydrate diets if we are feeding dogs kibbles and all kind of those things, and and then you read the ingredients and you have corn as the first ingredients or a
Yeah.
rice or things like that. So and then we had that entire movement in which the dogs used to be fed uh, through these kibbles and the entire food industry by predominantly carbohydrate diets. But on the
Mhm.
other side, now we have a movement in which we need to say biologically appropriate species appropriate diet. But in order to understand what, and then they said, like, in the nature, wolf would eat this, and that. And then we think that we need to feed our dogs as the wolf are eating in the nature. But then the question becomes, like, do we really understand who the dog is, so we can come up with a conclusion on what all my dog really needs in order for thrive and life of longevity and well-being? And
Right.
there, I think, like, we are all, very amateur in this, research. You are doing it on your own, I'm doing it on my own. We are getting together, following some interesting scientists. We are putting together interesting topics, and occasionally we're going to come up with a conclusion. And then, if research done objectively as possible, the conclusion going to vary. So you're going to have one conclusion, I'm going to have another one, someone else going to have third one. And then based on what we believe, outcome of our interaction with the dog will vary. And then you're going to
Yeah.
teach your school, I'm going to teach my school, someone else going to teach their school. And on the end, the one that suffers is actually a dog, because there is no consent about what that species actually is. What do they need? What are their for example, there was an amazing study evaluating what the what the wolves are reacting at when it comes to a human interaction. What were they reacting? They were offered sound, like a voice, and they were offered food, and they would offer some kind of, like, gadgets, right? Some interesting toys. What do you think made their biggest attention? What do you think drew their attention first, the most? Just
My
by,
guess probably be noise.
yeah, the voice of the human. And
Yeah.
that would draw their attention. What actually means that the fundamental of the human dog interaction is a connection. First,
Yeah.
overrides even need for the food. Because if the dogs are not at the place of trust, support, and welcoming environment, inviting
Or,
environment.
you know,
Sorry?
or inclusion.
Yeah, inclusion. Back, that's a great word to use. Inclusion. They would probably be scared to eat because they don't feel safe. And the
Mhm.
safety for every group animal, for us as well, if we feel that we don't belong to a family, if we feel excluded, if we feel not welcome or not included, for no matter what reason, objective or subjective interpretation of that, we are, we can starve to that. We can experience all kind of food kind disorders just because our emotional needs are not fulfilled,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, moving on with all of these that I just said, uh, I came to a conclusion, and it's not my conclusion; it's someone else's conclusion that would make sense and open my interpretation of the dog's needs and environment which we need to create for them to feel welcomed and included and safe and welcomed. Would be actually their neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
Neuroplasticity means that their brain is able to very fast adapt to new circumstances. And that is why, no matter what the outside, and that's my experience if in a life with a dog, no matter what lifestyle of the dog was before we adapted them, either they were puppies taken from a home or from the breeder, or puppies from the puppy mill, or that never met a human, or puppy from the shelter that we don't know what, or puppy from the, or adult dog from the shelter, or adult dog from the
I don't know
from the
their
street.
history. Yeah.
Every single dog tends to blend themselves into environment in which they live, trying to find, first looking for the leader, and then based on that decision they're going to find and blend themselves into the environment where do they feel belong, based on their perception of the place they will fill up in the new environment. And by studying how can I give the dog space so the dogs can observe the environment in new environment regardless. And this is very important to understand. This doesn't change my protocol of first 72 hours doesn't change the age of the dog, the environment from the dog was taken, or previous experience of the dog. Nothing of that matters, because 72 hours are, for the first time, 72 hours, we do acknowledge that the dog changed the environment, and that there is a certain level of suffering involved, no matter how the dog act or react, uh, because they are taken away. For every single group animal being taken away from the previous environment is pretty much kind of life threatening, and they are
Mm.
not aware that the new environment is going to be better than the last time was. But what they are sure, that there is no past environment. There is no existence of the past environment. And oftentimes when we will see that the puppies are, for example, we bring the puppy home and they're following us everywhere, or we bring the dog for the shelter and they are always, on us, on top of us. What I find actually, that intention of theirs and why they are coming so close to us with all of these, the best of their abilities to adapt and to be sweet to us, is just to take them back wherever we find them and take them from. That's why the dogs are seeing us as
I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding, because I want to really make sure that I'm compartmentalizing and comprehending what you're saying.
Mhm.
So are you saying that one of the most common reasons why a new dog that you bring to the house does tend to follow you around, does tend to seem a little over needy, is you're taking them from a situation that they were just getting adaptable to, or they have become adaptable to, regardless of whether it was a good situation or bad situation, they adapted to
Mhm.
it. And they're with you because you took them from that situation. So the only way they'll get back to that situation is through you. So
Yeah.
they're really, it's not necessarily that they're needy, that they're super lovable. It's, I can't lose you because you're the only way I know how to get back.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I say. And then oftentimes those first couple of days gonna be excessive urination and excessive pooing all over the place.
Mm.
Right, regardless, you wouldn't be able to locate, they wouldn't be able to put themselves to pee at one place. It's going to be like all over the place and pooing intensively, and that we can see every single couple of days after taken from the past environment. They're going to do that excessively. And then that's why some of the people would suggest, okay, put the dog in a pen, and that's where you're going to be able to control the place where they're going to be able to do their toileting, even if they're
Really
gonna
quick,
toilet.
and I don't mean to interrupt you, and I promise I won't interrupt too much.
Hmm.
It's just that you're not triggering me. You're making me connect dots. And I wanted to kind of just say what I'm thinking, because
Hmm.
I want to know if I'm inaccurate in that thought, so I don't take it somewhere else where it doesn't need to be.
Please.
Your rescue people as well as trainers, and I've adopted this as well, even though I've just heard it from trainers and I'm not taking it from firsthand knowledge, that when you bring home a dog for the first time, especially from a shelter, it says that they're basically angels for the 2-3 weeks that they're with you, and then all of a sudden situations start happening and their true colors start coming out, or their
Hmm.
character starts to come out, where you're like, oh, I didn't realize he used to be possessive over food. The first 3 weeks I had him, he was fine around food. So I'm wondering, I wanted to ask you, is when the dogs are kind of decompressing because they're in a new situation and they're following you around and they're depending on you, hoping that you might return to that situation after 2 or 3 weeks, I wonder if that's kind of the average of when they realize I'm not getting back to that situation, and now they're going to
Yes,
me.
that's literally depend on the dog and on their perception, and if we would understand whatever level of the free will they have developed and the reactivity to their brain. So that's kind of like, again, level of their neuroplasticity. In after 3 weeks, they're not going to be very sure about, they're not getting back from where are taken. So this is new environment. They already knew every single corner. They knew and observed every single person in that family, and they are pretty much sure, is there a leader to that group, or they need to step into the leadership role. And then for like let's say maybe like as you said, like 2-3 weeks, depend on the dog, we would see change of their behavior based on what poor animal is kind of like thinking that the best way would be to protect now this family that they are actually taken and given responsibility over. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also at that point, you are completely right, because from my perspective, that's exactly what happens. And also excessive urination and, the peeing and pooing when you, how you say, defecation, how you say that? Defecate, how you say that? When they go to toilet.
Defecation. They defecate.
Defecation, bravo, yes. Why they are doing that all over the home usually is because they want to leave the mark. So in
Mhm.
case the mother and the brothers or the shelter friends or the street friends are able to follow the smell to
Mhm.
come rescue them.
Hmm.
And that's oftentimes we would see later on in the anxiety, in the separation anxiety. The dogs would defecate at home. And then when the people would come home, they would be very much relieved. And no matter how much we punish them or whatever we do with them, they're going to be revealed. And they would not stop doing that when we are outside, because actually what they did, they didn't trust our ability to get home, to find the way home back. What they did is they left the smell inside the home, so we'll be able to follow the smell and come back to our cave. And every single time when that gives results, and that happens every single time when we come home, then
Mhm.
actually they know that they are doing right. And no matter how much they are punished for no matter what reason, they're going to keep doing it until the real cause of separation anxiety is not eliminated, and we take over the leadership position by our behavior. That's actually very much inspiring. And leadership, in a sense of leader, when we talk about, that's very for example, now half of the country is not happy with the leader we have. So
Yeah.
it's not about and the other half of the country celebrates. So
Yeah.
it's not about a leader that kind of like that's a sweet talker or bully or kind of like the leader, like the teacher is a great teacher, and somehow that stability of the great leadership actually just radiates. And the great leaders are leaders that inspire every single one around them. They are not the one that yell and bully and start to be alphas and aggressive, and I'm going to put you to a corner and you're going to do just what I say. No, no, no. That's kind of like that's way of, in oftentimes we do think that alpha pair and the alpha female and male in the pack are dominant by aggressivity, where actually it's far away from the truth. And the best is probably by behavior of your wolf dogs, and which kind of leadership you establish over them
Mhm.
to get embedded in them, that they are safe and protected by you, so they don't need to step in those roles. Because if animal steps in those roles, we never know how they're going to react to circumstances that they label dangerous. And
Yeah.
that's the way when the dog becomes aggressive towards humans or towards other animals, is because they label that certain kind of like a certain topic as dangerous for the group. And since they are leaders, they are taking advantage on acting before called to act, before a leader says yes, now I need your help, we need to get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
And that is where the aggressivity of the dogs come. So when I see aggressive dog, I don't see dog, I see dog that's actually calling for help. I don't want to do this, but no one of my humans is stepping in the role of the leaders. Someone must do it. The country cannot be without a president. You remember when the Queen Elizabeth died, at the
Mhm.
most, there was a paper, and someone read the paper. The Queen is dead. Long live the King. So there is transition of the power of immediate. There is no 1 second without a leader. There is no 1 second without someone on a throne, and
Yeah.
that's what the dogs need. And the only way
So
to
what would be so if I was your client and I just said, Sasha, I just got a puppy. What's the first thing I'm doing? Do I call you before I even get the puppy and bring
Yeah,
it home?
that would be perfect to call me before you get the puppy. So we lay a foundation, as you said, like do buy these, have these, create these, and things like that.
Right.
And then you said like, and then when we bring the dog for the first 70 to 48 hours are important. And if you do what I will just lay out for 42 hours, like no, yeah, first 2 days,
Mhm.
then you will be able, that third day you will already see that the dog is pretty much taking kind of like taking their position,
Mhm.
understanding their place, and surrendering. to a new leadership. And that's the highest level of trust that dog can show to a human, when accept them as new leaders and surrender completely. And then at that point, the human, and that can happen third day, again, regardless of how dog is old, regardless environment in which they live prior, the dog completely surrender because they feel safe. And the only way for them to feel safe is to give them a space to leave out that pain of understanding. Soon they understand no one is coming to rescue. They are not going back to their own environment, either shelter. I must tell here the story, how I became aware of this, how deep that, how rooted that sense of belonging is, even if it's abusive. For example, my Luca, my son, was going into a class in which he had an amazing teacher. But he has some alcohol issues, and later he was fired because of that. And Luca loved him a lot because that was the only class that has a teacher that was a gentleman. The rest of usually in Serbia, I think like ladies are teachers, and then his class has the Mr. Man, right? And he was so proud and feels so different, things like that.
Yeah,
And
he
then
had a professor.
yeah, he had a professor, and he loved him so much. And he was like first. We have those teachers in between first and fourth grade, and then after that they go to the other environment. And there was a third grade of his, and he was sick. He went home. He didn't go to school because he didn't feel well, and he had a problem with his stomach. It was some stomach flu, right? And he went to a doctor, and the doctor wrote him it was a throat flu, like he has a problem with his throat.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, it was a mistake. So
Yeah.
now the teacher asks him like, "Oh, are you well now? Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm great, good, everything is good. My stomach completely, healed, and I feel great." And he said, "Your stomach? At this paper that you got from your doctor, it says that you had a problem with the throat."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now he said like, you act like you are a little how you call the guys that falsificate things? You know
Or
that you have original painting, and then you paint a painting that's not original. How you call that? Forgery.
forgery.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you act like a little forgery guy. And that was like a fast sentence, but the entire class started calling him forger.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurt him so much that I'm getting so emotional when I told this story, because I can get myself in those shoes of my little son experiencing that torture and bullying by the friends and everyone there, that the countless days that he was going to that class,
Yeah, he
and
got
constant
labeled as
labor.
something
Yeah.
that he didn't resonate with. Yeah.
Yes. And then we went to talk. I went to talk to him, and then he said, "Well, I was just speaking my mind." And then I told him like, you are at that position that no one denies you speaking your mind, but your authority requires from you thinking prior talking your mind. So you cannot just talk like that because you think that's your constitutional right, because at that position that you have, a life of a child is on stake. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't think about what you are talking, you can literally, what happened to Luca, influence his life.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like starting to have literally over and over and over vomiting when he needed to go to the school, trying to find escape, ways not to go, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we told him, we talked to a psychologist in a school, and he recommended for Luca to change the class. And finally, the day came in which Luca needed to go to another class, and we were all there. His new teacher that was very nice to him, that lady, and he had in that new class he already had a friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a moment in which he need to go into the new class and leave the old class, and he just started crying. He said like, "I can't do this. I don't want to do this." And then one day passed by, and then we tried again next day, And then the psychologist told him, this is your last chance. Either you're gonna go in the new class, or you are going back to an old class without possibility to change the class anymore. And then he started crying, like literally like crying. And he's not a big crier, and he would try to find a way to escape things without crying. But when he literally expresses emotion on that end, you really know that it's a really big thing for him. And then the psychologist tell him, but why you do not want to leave the class that is actually bullying you? And what he said, like, something that hit my mind and still is my mind every single time when I talk on this topic. He said, like, no matter how hard that bullying is, one thing remains: it's certain. And I don't know, actually, by leaving that environment, me going into new class wouldn't be even worse.
Uncertainty. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what actually happens to every single dog that was bullied. Not necessarily they are taking new environment for granted because they are not sure, will this environment be even worse for them to control, and would they need to wear again the new shoes, and how they need to adapt to the environment in which there are no leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the dogs are actually, no matter which environment they're coming from, they always feel sad and sorry for leaving that environment. And then there is a 2 to 3 days, literally, hard work of hours in which we need to give them the space to kind of like understand that no one is coming to rescue them, and we won't take them back. It's a new life that starts now.
So
And then
what would be the step for
so
somebody to make sure that their dog goes through that for at least for the first 24 hours?
Yeah, for the first, so when you bring the dog home, what would be for first, baby talk is literally forbidden.
Yeah.
And no type of the talk to a dog I would recommend. And of course, I encourage my people, or actually my clients, to withhold any type of communication with the dog. In a sense of, come here, bravo, great dog, good boy, blah, 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 whatever, because the dog need to understand that this is an environment in which they need to find their place.
Right.
And if we interrupt their observation of the place by calling them, inviting them too close to us, we're going to just give them a fake hope that we are actually there to take them back.
Wow, interesting.
So what I do is actually, it's very important part is that I would even encourage people, for example, to take off the, if the puppy comes and you have possibilities, open the door and put the puppy down and let them just go and explore the house, no matter what they're gonna do. And also, you said an amazing time. It's the first night that the dogs are usually wanting to come up to the bed and be close to you. And again, from my perspective, what they are trying to do is not to get close to us because they love us suddenly, because they don't know who we are. They are trying to find our weak spot. But what they're not a weak spot, because the weak spot, they are looking for weak spot so they can push us our weak buttons. They are looking for the leader's weak spot. So they are able to understand, is this someone that's worthy of my leadership or my surrendering to them, or this is someone I need to care for? And then you said very interesting thing last time, in which said, like, if that's a rule, you would allow dogs to come on the bed, to put the dogs on a bed, and then be mindful about will they fall off, or how you're going to navigate that, because a lot of people want to sleep with the dog for the first day. And I would suggest that too. But what I would do is actually I would create a little nest for myself on the floor, and I wouldn't invite the dog to come next to me, but usually I would always find the dog sleeping by my side by the end of the morning. Not because I invited them, but because they chose to come.
Would that change depending if that was a dog that somebody rescued or if it was a puppy?
Interestingly, no.
No? Okay.
It wouldn't change, because I would always kind of try to find a way to lay down on the floor, to be available to that safety of the dog, to welcome them and to understand because inviting dogs on the bed would be something that's that's a high-end sacred spot.
So
on
you
the
would
couch.
okay. So with me in my example, and I'm talking about a puppy, maybe not a rescue dog that's grown, but for me, when I bring home a puppy, or when my clients bring home a puppy, I always realize, hey, you just put that puppy in a new situation. So if you put that puppy in a bathroom to sleep on its own, you're not only telling it that they're in a new situation, but you're also telling them that you're not necessarily part of our pack.
Yes, you
So
isolate them immediately.
suffers.
That's the
Yeah, so
worst
that's
punishment.
what I always encourage people to, yeah, bring your puppy on the bed. You're not in disagreement of sleeping with a dog. You're just saying do it on the floor.
Yeah, do it on the floor and don't invite, because if you take a puppy on the bed, it's your motion. It's you are inviting the dog on a bed, and that's motion that you are doing. If I put my sleeping pillow or whatever, like how you call that, sleeping bag on the
So
floor,
me putting a dog on the bed is my choice. Them coming to me on the floor to sleep with me is their choice.
then because if they come to you, they're already acknowledging your superiority.
I love that. So that concept, I can completely vibe with, because I'm all about the dogs making those choices. My
Decision.
thing is, I just want them to have comfort and know that that they're a part of my pack. And you have no disagreement with that. You're just saying, yeah, but make it their choice, not you
Yes.
saying, come up on the bed. Let them come to you, which you can only do on the floor.
Yes, and then you open yourself to this environment in which you are in which you are actually emotional, very approachable, but in the same sense, you acknowledge their transitional suffering and need for the comfort, and that suffering to pass by with time. And stricter we are of withholding the expression of our emotions, especially if you have kids and then everyone is crying in a baby's face, oh, beautiful puppy, mommy, it's a birthday, it's this, is that. The dog, actually, those signals to a dog is that, oh my God, I'm in the middle of this crazy people pack
Yeah,
that
yeah,
no
yeah.
one knows what the heck are they doing.
Because when
And some,
people do that baby talk, it comes across to the dog as anxiety, especially
yes,
if they don't
anxiety,
know you, right? If they
especially for the first couple of days, yes.
you, it's anxiety to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that would be the first very important part. I would then we would learn about ritual. I kind of like the way how the dogs are fed, the way how the dogs are taken out to the toilet and taken back. I wouldn't recommend necessarily taking the dog to a long walks uh, prior 2 weeks after they are taken home, because what I want to become through these 2 weeks of our interaction, I want to become the highest price for the dog. I
Mm-hmm.
want to become a highest value target to a dog. And I want the dog to play and to try to grab my attention. And in those 2 weeks, if I just withhold my emotional expressions, I'll be able to establish a very, very well grounds for the dog that will choose me as a leader, that
Mm-hmm.
will surrender and have me as the highest value target in the whole environment. And that where the calling the dog, and then I would literally exercise the recalls and very specific language that we cannot come up with these strange phrases in which, for example, the most abused word in the dog interaction, human dog interaction, is their name, because we're going to use a name in a positive connotation and then we're going to use a name in a negative connotation, and the
Mm-hmm.
dog would be confused. So I would use a name only as a recall. So
Yeah.
there is no other words that I call my dog with, oh Henny, come here now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
too much complicated, lot of words that I'm not necessarily gonna keep repeating every single time. But the Henny is always related to a nice environment that in after which, when he comes to us, goes some playtime or something nice happen, and then the name on its own has a target, very high value. I never punish the dog, so there is no sense that I would do something to a dog that will be provoked by. The only way what I do when the dog does something that I disagree with, it's ignore, or the timeout, depend on value level of the problem. If we
And then
keep,
how long, so give me an example of what does a timeout look like exactly, and for how long?
so for example, the timeouts is great when the dog is excessively barking, for example. So there is a problem oftentimes solved in 3 steps. For example, when you have a dog that excessively barks, and it's very important to understand: is the dog barking for the attention from me? Is dog facing me? Or
Mhm.
dog is facing the door, so signals that something is out there. So that those two uh, positions of the dog when they bark is very important. So let's say now the dog is facing door, someone is ringing or someone is passing next door, in front of the home, and now they're barking. So when
Right.
the dog barks first time, I acknowledge them barking and I say thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for doing your job. Okay, thank you. It's great, perfect. You don't expect to hear. I didn't buy the bird, so it's not singing. The dog barks when something they want to signal something to us. So I say thank you.
Mhm.
If the barking pursues, so the dog barks after me acknowledging them doing their job, I need to stand up to release them from doing that. So I would actually stand up and leave whatever I'm doing and go there, step in between them and the window, for example, look at through the window and release the dog from further need of doing that barking by saying them it's okay, right?
Mhm.
But that's very important. I can't do 2 times keep yelling at them, don't do that, don't
Or it's
uh,
okay, like
it's actually because I'm joining
right.
I'm joining that no them barking at someone, and then they even bark even more because I'm joining
Yeah,
the
you're just
the pack.
perpetuating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So what I'm doing here is, but if the dog keeps barking, so now first I said thank you. The second time the dog barks, literally, no matter what you are doing, you need to give up on doing and then engage in the dog's action by going there, see what the dog are actually, barking at, stepping between the dog and the window, looking through the window, and release the dog by saying it's okay. If the
Hmm.
dog continued to bark over that, then you would just take them nicely, politely, without screaming and anything, put them in a timeout until they do not settle down. Settle down means that probably if you are doing this with a
What
dog
is
that already
what do you
barks for a long time,
them?
you might need them to count down 5 minutes, for example. They go
Where is the timeout? Where is the timeout?
anywhere that's separated with the door from the rest of the group. It can
So
doesn't
it could be
necessarily
outside in the yard. It could be in the crate. It could be in your bedroom. It could be in what?
anywhere. Anywhere, just crate is not enough separation. You want to close door behind you. In between you and the dog, you need to have a physical, visible separation in which the dog understand that this is undesirable behavior, which leads to separation from the group, physical separation from the group.
For inclusiveness.
And I wouldn't do this often because this is, and the Henny is a nice dog. I don't need to do
Yeah.
this often. And when you are working with the clients, when they choose to isolate the dog, is really because the dogs didn't get a strict message that these rules are not acceptable and desirable rules of the house in which the dog lives.
It's not. Yeah. So it's not overused. It's there's a problem here, and because you're not receptive to me saying there's a problem, then we're gonna have to do this timeout.
Yes.
How long typically is
You
how is a timeout?
like I need literally 3 seconds of their silence. So
Mhm.
because usually they might cry, scream, scratch on the door, and if I wait more than 5 seconds, they might repeat the circle again, and then you end up having them in timeout forever. So
Mhm.
the moment you have 5 minutes, 5 seconds of silence, you just open the door without saying nothing. So you don't say nothing. It's no good boy. It's no welcome. It's no come here. Nothing. You just open the door, and they are again part of the group. At that point, they are able to connect the dots, and the dogs are pretty sentient and conscious to make choices and to make understanding that if I overstep this and this and this, I will be excluded from the group. And this is how I get included again. So that means if I keep doing this or if I stop doing that, that's my way in. And
So I so I did
actually,
something. similar with my clients. I call it a behavioral loop. So whenever they're having whenever they're getting pulled into a confrontation and pulled into some crisis because their dog's barking at the door, I do the very same thing. I usually say, tell your dog to come over to you because it's a great opportunity to call them away from a distraction. And if they ignore coming over to you, then I wouldn't say it more than one more time. And if they don't come over to you, it's not them barking that is the problem. So I say, so you're not doing the timeout because they're barking. That's actually not the problem. The problem is that they're not coming to you, right? That's an even worse offense. So I said, so now do your timeout. And I have a word for the timeout, which is get back, which is get back could be get back. I tell my clients, it just means get out of my space, whatever that space is. But I have to do the timeout for 1 to 2 minutes. And it seems to work very well. And I very rarely have a dog get up to a fifth offense. So I always tell them when you're doing the loop, they'll stop doing the behavior that's offending you probably in the second round or the third round. Very rarely do they ever get to the fifth repetition.
So when we got Henny, he was really barker, but I refused to acknowledge barking for 3 days because I didn't want to set any rules until he do not come to me. Because exactly if he's barking and I'm calling them and I want to engage in that, because the dogs are doing their job, right? They are protecting us. They are signaling something is wrong. And I find this interaction of, yeah, it's okay. Thank you for doing it. Okay. And if they pursue doing it, then I don't call them to come. I go there to see. So I literally acknowledge that there is something that they caught their attention. And okay, they got my attention too. So and I'm going there. And that's the moment when I engage in their interaction with the environment, outside environment. But then I said, okay, now from here on, there is not yours anymore. I'm going to decide what we're going to do with this information I have, and it's not yours to carry burden on top. I would be very kind of like when I call the dog, it's always to do something and take them somewhere else with it. So in my interpretation, if they are barking and I'm calling them to come, and then what I do with that, when they come, I should take them into some playtime or into somewhere. So they don't get a chance that they need to bark in order for me to call them.
Right.
And then what are we doing with them coming to us? It's always that I'm not calling the dog for just no reason. We are always engaging in some activity after the dog reacted on a recall. And there is no reward for that because
I don't do rewards either for the recall.
Yeah, because oftentimes the people would recall the dogs and then reward them by recalling, and then the dogs connect the things and do things that will require recalling them because of the reward.
Yeah. So is there a reason why you tell your clients, hey, you're doing a 5-second timeout? Is that a rule that they do a 5-second timeout, or can it be longer?
Yeah, it can be longer, but then you are not getting a clear information to a dog. Why did they get out actually, and what was the reason that they got out, right? Because if you immediately get them out from the room when they stop complaining, that would be immediate information, because I don't think so the dogs are able to connect so long the result, because if you oftentimes that a punishment the old philosophy of how we punish the dogs, if we does not caught them doing things we want to punish them for, they wouldn't be able to connect the dots. Why were they punished? And from the same token, my understanding is that if I wait longer than 5 seconds, they might not be able to understand what they actually did in order to get out from there.
Okay.
Maybe, and that's because oftentimes I would find the dogs that they would.
I think the shorter the timeout, the better, for sure. It does. They do recognize or connect the dots much faster. Absolutely, I totally.
So that's why. But for example, I also try to, when I want to recall the dog and interact with them, for example, playtime, or to take them to a walk, or, even to feed them, I always try to have them in a position of complete relaxation. So I want them when they, for example, when they want my attention. That's why I'm telling my clients, there is no toys. There is no toys. First, no toys, free toys around the place.
Yeah, and
Neither
and that's the hardest thing for me and my clients, because I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, no toys,
no
and they look
toys.
at me like I'm the devil.
Yeah, me too. I get, but you're gonna kind of thank me later,
Mhm.
because the toys are always, the dogs can use the toys in order to constantly bring in that prey mentality and a way of getting the prey to you by showing how did they catch something. And now if you engage in that playtime with them that they initiated with the prey, you
Yep.
are actually engaging with someone that's much higher in the rank than you.
Yeah. And so every time I've told somebody to stop doing that with their animals, I mean, like natural chews are okay, like, cow hoof or something nutritious, something digestible. If they want to treat it like a toy, fine. But as soon as you use things that squeak, fur, you throw it, it just makes them crazy.
Yeah,
And
override everything, awaken in them that predatorial instinct that later on you need to deal with in order to compress it for the urban environment lifestyle.
yeah.
And oftentimes our responsibility is not to awaken
Mhm.
those hidden demons within them,
I found
because they
I find that a lot of the times when I tell people not to do that, we never really have to work on the off leash recall. We never have to work on it
Yeah,
because
I,
we
I,
didn't
I, I
establish
completely
it.
see that. I completely see that.
Yeah,
But once you go to the store and go to buy the food or buy something for your dog, you cannot resist, because this consumerism is just, do you want the five bolts for price of one, or buy this beautiful squeaky toy for this, and then new this and new that. I mean, we try to produce, pure love and harmony, a lot of toys, a lot of tools, and that will help and increase human dog relationship. And we suddenly had a meeting to see what we're going to release for 2026, because we are working on that collection now. And then the these guys that are doing the strategy and the design and planning and everything, they came up with completely new like a set of toys that are designed like in our logo and things like that. And I said, like, this is cute, but it's completely out from the point of we want to interact with the humans. So unfortunately we denied that part of the
I
collection for
have tons
26.
of toy companies. I have like when people find me on social media and they have dog toys or things like that, they always come to me as well, or they'll come to me and say, "Hey, we have these toys and we sell this and we sell that, and we love to send you free toys so you can show your clients, and then we'll give you a kickback." And I tell them every time, I'm like, "I'm really sorry, but I'm highly against toys. I would not
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
call another
yeah.
dog trainer."
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think the toys, having a toys as a gadget in the interaction with the dog, there will be a time when it brings much better. It's a rabbit hole that you never know which direction gonna take you,
right.
and better don't play with the things, because if you have a toy and interact with the dog with the toy, if the clients have a toy, it's very important that the toy is always taken from the box, that it's not available to a dog, that we initiate the play and then we stop the play. But when you will oftentimes see when I have the dogs bringing the toys to a clients, and they said, what should I do? They said, you should ignore them. But they are barking. Yeah, of course they are barking because they want your attention, and not only attention, they want to take you into their game. And
Right.
they don't want to take you into their game in order to play with you. They want to take you in their game to kind of test leadership skills that you have. It's like kind of like a midterm election, kind of like,
Here's
changing.
the thing is a lot of times, and this is the thing that I think a lot of maybe some trainers and some owners don't realize is it is play. They do play in the wild, but that play has a purpose, which is to practice hunting, practice conflict, practice.
Interaction and hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
So
it, play to the human as if playing is just having fun, but there's underlying reasons why that is developing and why they do that. And the mother in the wild, they know how to do that way better than the humans. We create obsession, is what ends up
Yeah, and
happening.
that's exactly because oftentimes there is a great source of on internet, the wolves, and the way the body language when the wolves are engaging in literally the hunt, and not
Mm.
only hunt, but putting down the prey, and the way how they kill the animal and what they are doing, especially the coldness of the, for example, the African wild dogs, the
Yeah.
way how they kill the dog, how they kill the prey, or almost they're not even killing it. It's kind of like eating an animal alive. But
Mhm.
what you should observe is the body language, how the tail high goes, how the body interacts, and you're gonna see
It looks
very
like,
very happy puppy.
yeah, they're having
How
fun.
they are looking like, but why are they in such an alert and such a tension like body alertness is because literally it's always the worst thing one need to do is to kill someone else. It's not easy to produce all of that within the body to black out so much to be able to kill. And
Yeah.
that's exactly oftentimes when we observe how our dogs interact with us, for example, when we come home. That's kind of like very important portion. It's like unity rituals. How the people, what do we do when we come home, and why the dogs are jumping so high to lick us at the face, and why they want to greet us, and how my puppy loves me so much. What they're actually looking for is signs of possible wounds.
Mhm.
Are we actually bringing danger back home because they didn't know? Are we actually attacked? Because you said nicely, there is no reason to go out from the cave. It's not a resource search, searching for new resources, guarding the resources, or marking the territory where the resources are found. But
Right.
if the dog doesn't go with us outside, they are thinking that we left home just for that purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So when we come
What
home,
resources did you bring, or what new territory did you come from that we haven't been with you yet?
but that's
Yeah.
also very important part is that is so dangerous that you might not come back.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually, why I need to guard something that someone else is not guarding as well. I don't. So every single dog that interacts. So I'm thinking that there is the dangerous place, and the dangerous place starts beyond the main door of the home. So we
Right.
have these internal homes, parts of the home that we can use to separate each other. But once you go out in the wild, with or without a dog, it's a place in which we don't go for leisure. We go to work.
Right.
And that's why the dogs are actually very anxious when we come home to check, are we injured?
Mm-hmm.
And usually, what happens to the alpha pair. First of all, no injured animal would ever return home. They would, especially the pack animals,
Mm-hmm.
they would never get injured themselves. If they were be injured outside in some fight or whatever, they would never lead they would
Ah,
never lead. Yes, they would never lead the opposite pack or anyone back to the cave, right? So
yeah.
what usually happens with those animals, they would go away for a while, and they would either heal on themselves or die. And
Mm-hmm.
probably they would die, but they would never expose the sacred place of the and there was like very interesting, it's a documentary, it's on YouTube, I think, something from Yellowstone. There was a wolf that was actually coming home injured, and you know what happened to them?
The pack probably found them.
No, the pack in which they came back
Okay.
of their own,
Yeah.
killed them, killed
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah. So they
Oh.
killed the dog, they killed the wolf, and they left the dog there, left the wolf there, and they moved and replace the cave with the new one, the new place with the new one. They move
Oh,
the puppies, they move everything.
hey, you're not supposed to be back here. We can tell you got effed up. What are
Yes.
you doing back here before it's way too, yeah. So
And now,
let me ask you
and now listen
this.
this. Now listen this. I would say that every single time when we come home and the dogs are so anxious, jumping and happy, and mommy's home and I want to give you a kiss, all they want to know is, are you injured? Because if they find injuries on you, they need to go an extra step.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, that's when we put ourselves in complete understanding of how the pack works and how the pack operates. Then it
So
would be
what's
much
the rule?
easier.
So what's the rule? So you said that you have. So okay. So far I understand, and I may not be explaining it right, and you'll have to tell me. But so far I'm understanding the first 48 hours. One of those rules is um, not over vocalizing, or if you cannot vocalize at all with
That
that
all would
penis,
be the
that
perfect.
puppy.
Yes, yes, yes.
Second rule is if you're going to sleep anywhere, let the dog choose where to sleep, but you sleep on the floor and give it the option of coming to you.
Yes. That's the
Third,
cutest. That's the cutest thing everyone likes, and they really engage in that. That's cutest thing you can do to the dog. Even the big ones, like a shelter dogs and adopted dogs, they would find the comfort by your usually legs or the back, but they want to be close to you. And you are right; they are crying much less if they get a chance to get to you. And the just important thing is, don't touch them, don't
okay, so
reward them.
just don't touch them just because they came up to curl up
Yeah,
next to
yeah,
you.
yeah. Don't. It's a choice, and
And
it's a because oftentimes you cannot even predict their behavior, but it's just leave them there and allow them time to grieve, because that's what they are going through in first 24 to 48 hours. Yes.
then one of the other rules, I say the fourth rule is no toys.
Yeah, of course, for sure, no toys. And
So
then food, structured meal, as you said, like almost same like you. I would just add a pre couple of bite eating before I offer the food. Give the dog to eat. Once they eat or whatever they choose to do with the food, uh, the moment they move away from the bowl, the food is abandoned and you are picking the ball up and moving it away.
are you feeding are you doing the feeding ritual in community space, or are you doing it like I am where they have a feeding station or a crate?
No, I do. I would do it in a community space. So
Oh,
I would, for example, it would be much easier for me to prepare it in a kitchen, and I want in contrary to you, I
mhm.
want them to see that I'm actually offering them the food. But what I do here is I eat a couple of pieces before I offer them the food. For example, I can eat a piece of chocolate or a piece of something to start salivating and start
Mhm.
producing all of those juices that the dogs can feel, like they can smell, right? And
Mhm.
then I would put down the bowl and I would move away from the bowl and leave them the space for them to do with the food whatever they want.
I only do the not knowing where the food is coming from for the first week. I'll share with you what I do the second week, which is
Oh,
where I'm part of
next
the.
time. We can do
But
that next time, yeah.
yeah, so what is yeah, I'll share kind of where I move from there, maybe on our next
And
call.
then of course, like if you happen to go out and in back to the home, you do not say nothing. When you come back, you come back, and when you go out, you go out. There is no
So,
this talk.
so explain to me a little bit more about, and I know we're about an hour right now, so I don't know if we want to save this for content for our next podcast, but I wanted to know more of the rules of the first 48 hours, such as
Okay, yeah, yeah.
come home and they're rushing me. What is that greeting ritual supposed to be, or what is it that you normally tell your clients to do?
So when they come, it's not only for those first 30 the 24 hours. That's how it's supposed to be. So every single time when you come home, you just come home and that's it. You do not greet your dog on entrance, and you wait for them to give you space to do whatever you need to do. You are coming home, you will need to take off the coat, you need to put down your bag and baskets and whatever you're bringing with yourself, without giving any intention to the dog, because otherwise we engage in that we are coming from the dangerous place, and here we are, this time we survived, because that's the message. If I engage with my dog and they are jumping up high to me and I tell them, Mommy came back and here I am and how was you and blah, blah, blah. I try to, I ask them such a lot of questions, expecting them to tell me something. I don't know what, but I'm kind of talking to them like I expect them to.
Whenever I come home, I don't let my dogs invade my space at all. So I always ask for space. Which now, when I come home, they give me my space until I invite them in. But as
Yeah,
puppies,
that's actually.
what I do is when the puppies come up to me when I come home, like if I just got a new dog, right away I just say, "Hey, get back!" I just ask for space, and if they're insistent on wanting to investigate me, I'll say it one more time, "Get back." And if they're insistent, then I start going into my timeouts from there.
Mm. I just wouldn't engage, not even telling them get back or give me space or whatever. I would just claim my space, right, without any attention, because the whole point, from my perspective, the whole point is very. You saw how when the mother comes home from the hunt, or when the mom interacts with the puppies, the wolf mother interacts with pup.
Yeah,
She's very she's very uninteresting. She
yeah.
doesn't say nothing.
So
She comes
my
back.
wolf dogs, so my wolf dogs, because I have high content wolves and wolf dogs, right?
Mhm.
So one of the reasons why I do demand space is I always notice when I bring my wolf dogs together, if I separate one of them and come back, they all want to run up to him and sniff him.
Yeah, but then what? How? Yeah, that's normal, because that's what the
But
wolves would do.
the thing is, the first thing he does when they run up to sniff him is he starts to growl at them and snap at them and doesn't want to be
Sniffed or things like this.
yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I see that every time. And it's so interesting because it doesn't matter which one I do that with, they all do that. So I'll take my female and say, I'm taking her out, and then I'll bring her back. They all are obsessive with her, and she's happy to see them. And then all of a sudden she says, Stop, get off.
But listen, if I observe that constellation that you just said,
Mm-hmm.
for me, you are the leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they are not approaching you. They
Oh,
are
no, no,
approaching.
no. I'm not. So let me give you more context to that. When I bring them back, I let them out to their freedom area. So I'm
Mhm.
not in there.
Oh,
So
you are not with them.
I'll bring home the dog or the
But
wolf dog, and then I'll let them out to their freedom area, which they're out, and I see all of them congregate to meet that dog. And
Mhm.
that's really what I see, what I observe.
But also what I kind of like see there is they know that they have a leader. And
Mm-hmm.
what they're actually doing among themselves, again, is just, exercising that level of the second stage, because the leadership position is in your pack is taken. It's
Mm-hmm.
right. And
Mm-hmm.
you, with everything you do, communicate that perfectly. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to interact with them, and they are not interacting with you the way they would always try to. Who is closer to you? Who is next? Who is come? Who is up? Who is down?
To each
And
other.
that's, yeah, to each other, because that's very important, because they don't know is, and that's what happens with every single time when something physical separates us, especially when we come out from outside, when we come home from outside dangerous world. They want to come to us to see is something wrong with us. But if they're coming that to the other dogs, or to other members of the lower ranks, they want to see, like, is there maybe a space for them to come closer to you? And then maybe that's when she said, no, 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 this is still mine.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are there, I'm closer, whatever. Because the relationship between siblings is much more not about who is alpha, but who is second, and who is third, and who is fourth, and who is
There's a
fifth.
hierarchy. It's not a
Yeah.
dominant thing where they have to fight it out, but there is a natural hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah,
Which
and that's where they are.
for
That's
brothers.
where, but
Yeah.
that interaction, we spoke about that last time, and very nicely laid the foundation of how important it is that the mother uh, teaches the puppies in the first couple of weeks, right? And
Yeah.
then she moves aside, leaving the puppies to learn the space of interacting with each other, and then that relationship among themselves, they're gonna take out into the world,
Yeah. You know, it's
right?
the worst thing I always see. And it's funny because sometimes people will call me and they'll say, Hey, Tony, if I'm going to buy a puppy from a breeder, what should I look for? What should I ask? And there's always one criteria that they will never find. And I always say, if you could, if at all, ask your breeder not to give the puppies toys while they're whelping with their mom.
Yeah, my God, yes.
And they go, oh, my breeder says that's important. That's for socialization. I've never met one breeder that has not used toys in their puppy, puppy prepping.
Yeah,
And
we have with our children, the toys and everything that we think that develops this children's creativity and whatever is actually kind of like replacement of the parents,
right, yeah, yeah.
giving
Wait,
them
because it's like with me, and I'm really guilty of this. I want to spend time with my son, right? So I'm sitting there, and I put him in this little swing,
yeah,
right? Occupies him, and he can't move around, so I don't have to chase him. And then I put on the Lion King, and then
yes.
watching a cartoon, and then I sit down and I enjoy the show with him. And then my his mother will come in and go, "I thought you said you're going to spend time with your son." I am.
Yeah, yeah, but because you didn't replace yourself with a movie that oftentimes parents would do, just
Yeah.
give the kids. I oftentimes, I see. Unfortunately, you have we just another day we went, to celebrate some little victory we had to a bar, and then we went there, and suddenly you have like 5 tables with the kids, and it was like already 11 o'clock in the night, and
Yeah.
you have parents talking among each other. On another table, the father and the mother were on the phone, but in order to keep kids occupied, all of them had the tablets and the phones.
Yeah.
It's kind
Yeah.
of like the gadgets and the toys and everything is not replacement for the human interaction and need of us engaging with the dogs and play time and play with the dogs, so we can constantly increase social interaction with them, claiming our position and stating our position, and with through the interaction and play, show the dogs where is their place without bullying them, without punishing them, without e-collaring them, without choking them, without doing any harm. And
Yeah.
that's where actually this wonderful relationship can help us become a humans that doesn't need to force anything on anyone. That
Yeah.
does I don't need you to understand that I'm right or my perception is right and you're wrong and whatever is coming there, because if we get a chance to know each other and more we talk, more we're going to learn that probably the point we are solving the problem is the same, and maybe I learn something more from you
I am noticing
and
that.
you something more from
Listen,
me.
I'm really open. I mean, I'm a sponge. My last mentor, I think I traumatized him a lot because I'm so open that I even listen to other people that use toys in their training. Well, I'm learning it. I'm open. I want to know why they're doing it. And if I don't agree with it, then I know I don't think that's the right path. But my last mentor, if I brought up, hey, did you check out this trainer? They use toys. It would trip him out. He'd be like, why the
Yes,
hell are you doing? Why are you researching that, right? But my
because
thing is, even already talking to you, I'm already wanting to adopt that sleeping on the ground.
yeah,
So
it's fun. It's
I
really fun.
prefer that because that resonates with me a lot more. And I know it would resonate probably with my past mentor a lot more too, because we always believed, hey, you need to give your dog the choice. And you're
Mm.
right. I would love for I'd like to bring the puppy up on the bed with me, but that action, if you're going to be a purist, that wasn't the dog's choice to bring the puppy on the bed with you, was it?
Yes,
Technically not.
and
So
also it's great if you can
allow
inspire the puppy.
to choose
If
you,
you
it
can
makes much better sense.
usually the puppies would tend to get close to your back, around your butt, and maybe the kind of like somewhere around the knees and elbows, things like, not elbows, but yeah, knees or feet. But you have a puppies that tend to come closer, higher, and then I wouldn't let them remain there, but I would take my pillow and my bag and just move myself up or left or right, so I actually don't push them lower to my body, but I pull out from where their actually choice was, to choose my arms, or no, nothing that's over the let's say heart and above, that's
Yeah.
like no zone. uh I would just, don't I wouldn't take them away from me. I would just sneak out from that and, reclaim my space and just allow them to understand that there are the rules, even though that I'm not talking, I'm not pushing, I'm not doing. And also, if they do anything like peeing and pooing and off the places, I also didn't say that I would love to make some kind of like space management. So I wouldn't let them explore entire house. I would maybe, put a boundary somewhere and
Well,
slow.
let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this, and I don't mean to interrupt you again because you're spitting out a lot of valuable information. So I feel really bad to stop you and interrupt you.
No, it's like interaction.
So I would like to learn more about our commonalities in that first 48 hours. And I know that you probably haven't even shared everything you tell your client in that 48 hours. Is this something, knowing that we're going about an hour here, is
Yeah,
this
maybe we should
is this
like
something the producer, because we know who our boss is, right? He's
yeah. But he
watching.
doesn't he let us do this. I don't know why. Like, Vedran,
So
do you
I'm
want us to
wondering if
stop?
veteran would prefer that we take this onto the next podcast.
Yeah. Let's do that. So we have a topic for the next class. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. That's super. That's Sasha. That was very, very interesting that you took me through that because we do have a lot of those commonalities. We just really honestly did get there in two different ways, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it's kind of like give a choice to the dog, and
Yeah.
more choices they have, faster get they're gonna. And then that's a little latent learning in which you inspire them, and by your action, they're gonna literally understand the place of theirs. And once they understand, and the only one thing I want to say before maybe until next time someone gonna have a puppy, just don't try to, when they poo or pee or do whatever you don't agree with, do it. Just clean after them and don't say a word. Because every single time, if you engage in such a behavior, you might be even, you caught their attention. Actually, they caught your attention, and that might be something that they're gonna enforcing because maybe they're gonna see, oh, even if you punished them or said something about its attention. What we want to have here, when we have a children and the
Mhm.
busy parents, sometime, the only way to make attention and grab attention of the parents that are busy and completely uninteresting because of whatever circumstances about what's going on with the children would engage in destructive behavior by
Yeah.
breaking the glass or having negative. And then the dean gonna call you in the school, and you're gonna go there, and then you're gonna punish the kids and things like that. And down deep in themselves, they're happy because finally the mom sees me, and mom sees me only when I make shit. So
Yeah.
how I gonna keep grabbing her opinion? I need to keep breaking the glasses or be negative in the school. And that's the way how I can grab my mom's attention. And
Yeah.
then finally I can understand that she loves me, even though she punishes me every single time. It's the only way that she's engaging in interaction with me. And
Yeah.
same is the dogs. If you wanna, and I think you had also you said that last time, the dogs are not stupid animals. They wouldn't continue doing things that doesn't bring any results.
Yeah.
And the
So
most
one of the
important thing is
things.
that their behavior does not interact with you. So the way I punish my dogs, the hardest I go is ignoring their behavior. I don't want them to keep repeating. Or if they keep kind of like persisting with the things, then the high end of punishment to the dogs would be out from the pack. You don't
Yeah.
belong if this
A
is the
lot
way
of
you
a lot
behave.
of people, a lot of trainers don't realize, like with people that use tools and e-colors, they don't realize, or maybe they do, but they haven't explored it enough, how much exclusiveness that dog really wants. Even if you're like, my dog doesn't care two craps about me. Yes, because of little things that you're doing that are creating that. But when you start to remove them from situations, all of a sudden they want to be more inclusive, and it overrides a lot of major behavior that you wouldn't think would be repairable by that. But
Yes,
it's not
you're
about,
right.
but it doesn't just happen. Like for example, somebody could say, well, every time my dog barks out the window, I take him out. Yes, but you're doing that only when he barks at the window. There are other steps to shaping that exclusivity that will make it so you don't even have to work on the window.
Mm.
Maybe you only have to remove them once, and then they realize, oh, I'm not doing that again, because of the previous experiences they've had with this non-exclusiveness whenever they're upsetting you. In any case, I don't want to ramble on and go beyond, but we do want to talk about potty training, because that is obviously going to be discussed within the first
Yeah,
48
we
hours.
can. I just wanted to say here that the potty, what the way they are doing in first 24 to 48 hours is because they want to leave a smell to
Yeah,
their litter mates and to their friends and things like that. Hey guys, look at me, I'm here, come rescue me. And it's
yeah,
not, you just leave that, you just, clean it up and that's it.
yeah.
And the more
See,
you,
with that attention thing you were saying, because I always tell, like, I've had a client before where she says, "Oh, but my puppy's licking my face when I'm cleaning it," and I go, "There's the mistake.
yes,
Take your
yes,
puppy out," because I tell my clients, I don't even want the puppy seeing you clean it.
yes,
That
yes.
is also a bonding experience there.
It can be. Is here. I just want to. Yeah, you are right, because here is the engagement. Is that can also be, but what I want to say here is just do it without making it be big deal,
Yeah.
especially for first 3 days, because they are not peeing and pooing because they need a toilet. They are doing that because they need their friends and litter mates.
Yeah. All right. Well, next time I do want to talk more about the rules of the first 48 hours, because I don't know what they all are. Like, how much more is there? Like, did you almost pretty much go through the first 48
Yeah,
hours?
pretty much. We just have a walking ritual and then that's it, the one, and then playtime. The proper playtime in that time that actually I don't even engage in with them, playing with them, because I do understand, when you grieve, then you have a different needs.
So in the next podcast, then let's go over the rest of the rules.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. And then we can,
Then on
maybe
the
I'll be
following podcast, I'll go ahead and tell you the rest of what I do with that progression. Because
okay.
I'm curious to know how you do your potty and how you do your crate work. Because my crate work, I turn it into a feeding station, and I leave it open all the time. But we'll get into that next time. I
Okay,
just
great.
want to know if you do it very similarly to what I do.
Yeah, let's explore. And I really enjoy this kind of, like, similarities and thinking, because last time I was wonderfully thinking about that. Should I maybe enforce the feeding ritual after we come from home, after from that walk, or call it whatever, exploration of
Yeah.
the
And
outside
then I was
world,
thinking to myself, maybe I should be sleeping on the floor. So I have a funny feeling we're probably going to end up.
mixing something from.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I wish you a wonderful week, to you and everyone that watched or listened this podcast, and then see you next week again, like a Wednesday
Yeah.
around 6:30 Eastern time, and by that time, I wish you nothing but the best.
Yep. Absolutely. I'll say bye to everybody, and we'll all see you guys next week.
Bye.